I told him yes. I remember the way I said it, too. Like it was a light decision. Like we were just experimenting. Okay, let's try it, I said. And in that moment, I thought I was being modern, flexible, maybe even evolved. But what I didn't realize is that I was lying to myself. Hi, my name is Katie. I'd rather not say my last name. If you like real confessions like this, hit subscribe before we dive in. So, how did I get here? We'd been married 6 years at that point. Comfortable, not unhappy, but routine. You know how some couples get into this autopilot mode? That was us. We weren't fighting, we still loved each other, but there wasn't that spark anymore. And I guess for Josh, that meant we had to explore. He brought it up one night after dinner, very casual. What do you think about an open marriage? Like he was asking what movie I wanted to watch. I remember laughing because I thought he was joking. But when I looked at his face, I knew he meant it. I asked him, "Is there someone already?" He said no, that he just wanted us to have the freedom to connect with others, and it might even bring us closer. And this is the part that gets me now. Why didn't I say no? I think I was afraid. Afraid he'd leave me if I didn't go along with it. Afraid he'd think I was insecure or boring. I've always been the cool one in our relationship, the one who goes along, stays calm, doesn't make drama. So I told him I was open to it. I said we could try, with rules. And looking back, I knew in my gut that I wasn't built for this. I'm not wired that way. But I pushed it down. We made rules. No sleeping with friends. Always use protection. Tell each other beforehand if something's going to happen. Emotional connections were off limits. We said that one loud and clear. It was just supposed to be physical. But you can't legislate feelings. You can't schedule heartbreak. At first, nothing happened for a while. I almost hoped he'd forget about it. But then, one night, he told me he had a date. Just like that. I smiled, I nodded, I said, "Okay, have fun." Then I poured a glass of wine and sat on the couch, pretending I was fine. I wasn't. I sat there for hours that night, staring at the wall, imagining him with her, laughing, touching, whispering things. I didn't sleep. I just waited for him to come back, like some pathetic ghost haunting our apartment. And when he did walk in, grinning, looking lighter than I'd seen him in months, I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I asked him how it went, like I was asking about a job interview. I hated myself for that. That was the first time. Then there were others, always just physical. He kept reassuring me, told me I could do it too if I wanted. But I didn't want to. I didn't want anyone else. I wanted him. And I started to realize I hadn't really agreed to an open marriage. I'd agreed to letting him go without making a scene. Somewhere in all this, I lost the voice that used to protect me. It's funny, the things we do to protect the idea of a relationship. I acted like I was okay because I didn't want to be the jealous wife. I laughed at his jokes about awkward dates. I even helped him pick out a shirt once before he went to meet someone. That's probably the moment I cracked inside. Even if I didn't show it, I still loved him. But the love started to hurt more than it healed, and somewhere deep inside, I already knew this wasn't going to end with us stronger. I just didn't know how much worse it was going to get. You'd think setting rules would protect you from pain, that boundaries could keep the damage contained, like sandbags holding back a flood. We really thought we were being smart about it. We sat down like two professionals drafting a contract. Rule 1, total honesty. Rule 2, no close friends or coworkers. Rule 3, always use protection. Rule 4, this was my rule, no sleepovers. And the most important one of all, no feelings. This was supposed to be physical, just experiences. We agreed, we both nodded. We even joked about being ethical and progressive. But the thing about rules, they're only good if both people actually want to follow them. The first time a rule got broken, it was small. Or at least, that's what he said. He'd hooked up with someone twice without telling me beforehand. When I asked why, he said it just happened, and he didn't want to ruin my weekend by telling me. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, his half-eaten sandwich in front of him, and thinking, Ruin my weekend? Like that was the concern here. That moment should have been the warning sign, but I brushed it off. Told myself we were still learning how to navigate this. Told myself people make mistakes. Then it started happening more often. He'd mention hookups days later, like an afterthought. And each time I felt this quiet snap inside me, like threads unraveling. I tried to match him. I really did. I downloaded the apps. I went on a few dates, but I couldn't do it. I'd sit across from these guys, perfectly nice, charming even, and I'd feel absolutely nothing. All I could think about was Josh, where he was, who he was with, whether he was happier with her. And yes, eventually it became her. One person, repeatedly. He tried to downplay it, said she was just easy to talk to, and they had good chemistry, but it was still just sex. He never used her name, which made it worse, like he was protecting something. I asked him if he'd be okay if I kept seeing one guy over and over. He hesitated, just long enough, and then said, "Well, it's not ideal. Not ideal." I started finding excuses to go to bed early. I didn't want to hear about his nights anymore. We used to cuddle, talk about our days. Now, I lay there pretending to sleep while he texted her. I know that's what he was doing. I could feel it in my bones. The worst part wasn't the sex. It was the secrecy. The shift. The way he looked at his phone like it was more alive than I was. The way he smiled at messages he wouldn't let me see. At some point, I stopped asking. It was easier to pretend I didn't care than to hear another excuse. One night, I broke one of our rules too. I went out with a guy from work, just drinks. It wasn't a date technically, but I let the conversation get too flirty. I let him walk me to my car. He leaned in, and I didn't stop him fast enough. It didn't go further. I went home. I told Josh the next morning, expecting at least a flicker of jealousy. He shrugged, like I'd told him I got stuck in traffic or spilled coffee on my shirt. That was when it hit me. He wasn't invested anymore. Not really. The rules were there to protect him, not us. I asked him, "Do you still want this marriage?" He didn't answer right away. He just stared at the floor like it was suddenly the most interesting thing in the world. Eventually, he said, "I don't know. I didn't think it would get this complicated." That was the most honest thing he'd said in months. We stopped talking after that. We shared space like polite strangers, still married, still technically open, but everything between us felt closed, shut down, hollow. It's funny how quickly two people can become roommates, how silence becomes the loudest part of your life. I kept hoping he'd come around, that he'd realize what we were losing. But deep down, I think I already knew. It wasn't the rules we broke that ended us. It was the lie we told ourselves when we made them. I don't know the exact moment he fell for her. There wasn't some dramatic confession, no candlelit confrontation where he looked me in the eye and said, "I love her." It didn't happen like that. It was slower, quieter, the kind of thing that creeps up on you until it's too obvious to ignore. I just started noticing the way he changed when she was in the picture, the way his moods shifted depending on whether he'd seen her recently, the way his phone never left his side anymore, not even during dinner. He used to laugh at couples who couldn't put their phones down, and now he had become one of them. It wasn't just the sex anymore. I could feel it. He was emotionally there with her and emotionally gone from me. One afternoon, I was folding laundry, mundane, normal, everyday stuff, and I picked up his hoodie. It smelled like a different perfume. Not mine. Not laundry detergent. Something floral and heavy. And the strangest thing? I didn't even cry. I just sat there, holding it, feeling this hollow ache in my chest like I was watching someone else's life fall apart. I confronted him that night. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just asked, "Are you in love with her?" He didn't say anything at first, just sat there. Then he rubbed his face and said, "I don't know what you want me to say," which is just another way of saying yes without having to own it. I don't know if he realized how cruel that was. to not even lie, to just leave me hanging in the space between denial and confirmation. From that point on, everything changed. He stopped pretending, he stopped hiding texts, stopped making excuses. He was still coming home to me, but his heart was clearly somewhere else. And I hated how much I still wanted to be the one he loved. I hated that I was still making him dinner, still asking about his day, still pretending we could fix this if we just had the right conversation. But deep down I knew, love doesn't live in half efforts. And whatever we had was now a shadow of what it used to be. I started noticing how little he touched me anymore, how awkward hugs felt, how he never looked at me the way he used to, not like a partner, not even like a friend, just like someone he used to know. I remember one night he came home late, later than usual. I asked, "Did you see her tonight?" And he just nodded. No guilt, no apology, like I was a roommate asking if he picked up groceries. That's when I realized I was the extra person in my own marriage. She had become the main story, and I was the footnote. I started checking her social media. I didn't even know her last name at first. I had to piece it together through tags and mutual friends. When I finally found her profile, it hit me like a punch to the gut. There were pictures of them together, not kissing or anything, but close enough. Inside jokes in the captions, comment hearts, little details he'd never share with me. I was staring at the woman who had quietly stolen what was left of my marriage. And the thing is, I didn't hate her. I wanted to. I tried to. But the truth is, she probably didn't break any rules. She probably believed he was genuinely available. I don't even blame her. I blame him. Because I gave him my whole heart. I bent myself backwards trying to make an impossible situation work. And he used my compromise as a stepping stone to someone else's affection. That kind of betrayal, it's not loud. It's not made of screaming or slamming doors. It's made of silences, shrugs, avoided eye contact, slow exits. And the worst part is, he never even ended things. We just faded. Day by day, he became less my husband and more a stranger who slept beside me. Until one day, I realized I couldn't keep begging for scraps of love from someone who had already found a feast elsewhere. There's this myth people sell you about open relationships, that they're liberating, that they're mature and expansive and full of growth. And maybe, for some people, that's true. But for me, it was slow-motion self-destruction wearing a smile. I thought I was being brave when I said yes to it, like I was choosing empowerment over jealousy. But what I was really doing was abandoning myself in order to keep him. In the weeks after I realized he had feelings for her, I kept trying to convince myself that I was still in control, that I could still navigate this, still set the tone. I told myself I just needed to adjust, that marriage evolves, that love can stretch, but love doesn't stretch indefinitely. Sometimes it snaps, and when it does, it takes pieces of you with it. I remember standing in the bathroom one morning, brushing my teeth, and catching a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and I swear I didn't recognize the woman staring back. She looked tired, not just physically, but emotionally. There was this emptiness behind her eyes, like someone who had forgotten what it felt like to be cherished. I used to feel beautiful, not model beautiful, but seen, desired, loved, and somewhere along the way I had traded that feeling for permission to be tolerated instead of adored. I started second-guessing everything, my worth, my value, my choices. I wondered if I had done something to push him away. Was I not spontaneous enough, too emotionally dependent? Did I make him feel caged? I spiraled, quietly, neatly. I still went to work, still smiled at neighbors, still posted the occasional photo of my coffee or my cat like everything was normal. But inside, I was falling apart. The nights were the worst. He would come home, sometimes late, sometimes early, and I'd be in bed pretending to sleep, but really just listening for signs, clues, hints of what he felt, of whether he missed me at all. I started keeping a journal, not a pretty one, just a spiral notebook I stuffed in the back of my nightstand. I didn't even write sentences, just questions. Why am I still here? Would he care if I left? Does she know he's still married? Sometimes I'd write his name over and over, like I was trying to remember what it felt like to belong to him. It sounds pathetic, I know. But when you love someone that deeply, that irrationally, you do pathetic things just to feel a little closer to who they used to be. And yet, I stayed. Because the idea of starting over felt heavier than the pain I was already carrying. I told myself, at least this way I'm not alone. But I was alone. Fully, deeply alone. And nothing is lonelier than sharing a bed with someone who loves someone else. One day, a friend asked me how things were going. I almost laughed. I said, "We're figuring it out." She gave me that look. You know, the one people give when they know you're lying but don't want to push. She nodded and changed the subject. I walked away from that lunch with this sinking realization. No one was going to rescue me. Not my friends, not my family. Certainly not Josh. I had to save myself, and I didn't even know where to start. So I did the only thing I could think of. I stopped pretending. I stopped pretending I was okay with it. Stopped pretending we could fix this. Stopped pretending I didn't deserve more than a man who kept my love in one hand and gave his heart to someone else. I told him we needed to talk. He looked nervous, like maybe he thought I was going to fight for him again. But I didn't. I just told him I couldn't do it anymore, that I had nothing left to offer someone who didn't want me fully. He didn't argue, didn't beg. He just nodded, and in that silence, I felt something unexpected, relief. I had spent so long trying to keep him, trying to adjust myself into someone he'd stay with, that I forgot what it felt like to stand on my own, to make a decision that wasn't about preserving a fantasy. I moved out 2 weeks later, took my journals, my books, my favorite coffee mug, left behind the bed we used to share, and the version of me who said yes when she should have said no. I wasn't free the day I agreed to an open marriage. I was free the day I walked away from it. It's been almost a year now. A year since I packed up my half of the apartment, walked out of a marriage that once felt unbreakable, and started over with nothing but a few boxes and a very shaky sense of self. People always ask what it feels like to leave someone you still loved. I tell them it's like walking away from a burning house with your favorite memories still inside. You know it's going to hurt, but staying would have killed you. Sometimes I still wake up and expect him to be next to me, that early morning moment of confusion where your brain hasn't caught up with your reality. Then I roll over, see the empty space, and remind myself, this is peace. Not having to wonder where he is, not having to smile through pain, not having to share the man I married with a stranger who somehow became more important than me. I wish I could say I'm fully healed. I'm not. There are still days when I feel bitter, angry, embarrassed by how much I tolerated in the name of being understanding. But I'm also not the same woman who agreed to that arrangement. I've rebuilt myself in tiny, stubborn steps. I started therapy. At first, I was embarrassed to admit I needed help. But my therapist said something during one of our first sessions that hit me hard. You were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. That one sentence unraveled years of guilt I'd been carrying. I realized I didn't fail at open marriage because I was insecure or needy or jealous. I failed at it because I was trying to mold myself into someone I wasn't. I was trying to love in a way that didn't make sense for my heart. And no matter how trendy or enlightened it sounded, it simply wasn't me. Some people thrive in open relationships. I get that. I don't judge it anymore. But I'll never say yes to one again, not because I'm bitter, but because I've finally learned what my own boundaries feel like. Real love to me means presence, commitment, knowing that I'm enough for someone and they're enough for me. I want to wake up next to a partner who chooses me daily, not just out of habit, but out of love. I'm dating again, carefully, slowly. I ask better questions now. I watch more closely, and I listen to my gut, the same gut I ignored when I said yes that first night. Now, when it tenses, I don't rationalize. I trust it. I'm learning to enjoy my own company again. I read more. I cook for myself. I go for walks without checking my phone every 5 seconds. I'm still learning what happiness looks like outside of someone else's shadow. Sometimes I think about the version of me who said yes to the open marriage. I want to hug her. Tell her she's not weak, just scared. Tell her she deserves more than a relationship that makes her feel second best in her own life. Josh reached out a few months ago. Just a short message. He said he hoped I was well. Said he missed what we used to have. I stared at that message for a long time, and then I deleted it, because the truth is, I don't miss what we had. I miss who I was before I started shrinking to fit his idea of love. Now, I'm building something new, something softer, stronger, something that doesn't require me to split myself into pieces just to be loved. And the next time someone asks me if I could ever do it again, ever consider an open marriage, my answer will be simple, clear, unapologetic. Number never again.